Josh in Germany. Today we're going to be doing a radio install on this 99 Jeep Cherokee. I recently purchased it, and I'm not too happy with the radio that's in there right now. I do have another one that's not the best of quality of radios, but it does have some of the options that I'd like. Today I would like to go over with you on how to do a radio install, what are the things that you need to do it correctly, and some of the things that you should look for before you look into buying a radio and or installing one in your car. So let's take a look. Here we are in the back of the Jeep, and I've laid out a few tools that we're going to use today. Our wire cutters, our crimpers, our wire strippers for ease. You can do this with wire cutters and strip the wire, but this is the preferred method. Nice clean wire pull every time. Some electrical tape, very important. Some connections to connect the radio with. Our sweet socket set. And one of the things I like about this socket set is that these little bits in the ends of the sockets don't come out. So when you're working, it allows you to do a little bit more what you want to do when you want to do it. So it's a very handy tool. One of my favorite tools. My most favorite tool, by the way, are these bad boys right here. You need a good set of hands. All right, so you need a radio. Be careful you don't rip nothing out. This radio, to note, to show you, has 3 sets of RCA pre-outs on the back, which will allow you to run 2 amplifiers or however many amplifiers you want. 3 sets of RCA pre-outs, if you're going to buy a radio, is what you're looking for. If you get one with no pre-outs or just one RCA pre-out and you want to amplify something, don't even go that direction. Try to find something like this. If you're just going to throw factory speakers in, or you just want to throw some speakers in the car, any radio will work. It doesn't really matter. The whole I have 50 watts by 4, 2,576 watts by 87. That's all a little bit blown out of proportion. Most radios are going to do 25, 23 by 4. It's RMS power. I'll explain that in another video. But for what I want to do, because I'm probably going to throw amplifiers in here sooner or later and probably replace this radio sooner or later, I'm going to throw this in here for now. I've also got with me today a pry bar. In case you need to pull apart center consoles, do anything like that. I won't be doing any of that today. For what I've got to do, it's a pretty straightforward, pretty fast install. Ooh, that's cute. Ooh, that was a dragon. It's a pretty straightforward, pretty fast install, so I won't be needing this today. This is really useful. This and or a pocket knife are really great at taking cars apart, especially inside on the panel work where you've got to maybe pry, pull, twist something sometimes. So try to find yourself something like this, or again, a pocket knife will work wonders. Multimeter, this thing's a beast. You need one. Mine's seen its better days. I've had it in a lot of tool bags, a lot of cars. These are very handy tools for when you need to find certain things. You can get one on the fly for pretty cheap. I've got 2 of them. The other one I've got cost me, I think, about 70 euros, which is around about 100 bucks. You can spend about that money and get the key features you need, and I'll do a video on something like this later so you can see what it does. And we've got a soldering gun. I'm not going to be using a soldering gun today, and I probably have 2 or 3 of these, maybe even 4. And I don't use them that often. I mainly use them to repair factory wiring. Fucking dragons. To repair factory wiring, for the simple fact that a solder will last longer. A solder is a better connection. A solder is a way better connection than these butt connectors. And some people are going to argue and say, oh, you shouldn't be doing a radio install like this. Hey, you should solder these connections, which these I think might have been. I don't know. I'll pull the stuff off here later. The thing about soldering a radio connection, or any connection to do with installing a radio, in my opinion, is that your connection is going to last longer than your radio. These are meant to last about 3 years. If you get more than 3 years out of a radio, you're doing something right. Something I ain't doing right. But I'll use butt connectors because it's faster. It's 3 times as fast. It's quick as it gets. And for something like a radio, it's the right tools for the right job. So let's go ahead and move up front and see what we got. In this Jeep, it's a 99 Jeep Cherokee, 2.5 liter. Sorry. So pull that out, and a lot of cars are bolted in a little bit more securely than this. So yeah, hopefully this doesn't become a tutorial on how to steal a radio. So we're going to take 10mm socket and our little screwdriver attachment. Just remove the 2 bolts on the radio, left and right. Your factory will work the exact same. You'll need to pull these two, and your factory radio should slide out. So what we got is a Sony radio. It's got a nice little auxiliary input here, but I don't use that, and I think this radio sucks. So I'm going to disconnect the wiring real quick and show you guys what I have. So what we have is a constant power wire, which is yellow. The accessory wire, which goes with the key. So when I put the key in the ignition and I turn the vehicle on, this wire will get power. This wire has constant power. So a lot of times this will be your battery cable. This will be your accessory ignition. And this is your ground cable. These three wires are what you need to make your radio power on, or to even use it. The rest of this, these all right here, are your speaker wires. Front left is white. Front right is gray. I always remember gray and green are opposite. So this will be your rear left, and purple is your rear right. The orange cable here is for your most radios. Most cars are going to be the same. Now, say if you get in and these wires are chopped, which is a horrible idea, I would suggest against ever chopping out a factory wiring harness. If you decide to chop these out and say you have a brand new vehicle with a factory warranty, you've just voided that warranty. So it's always best to pull the factory radio out. You're basically going to start out with what we have here. And you'll end up with two separate wiring harnesses. As you can see, I've already got a little bit of electrical tape on this one. And we're going to want to put together two wiring harnesses, kind of like what I have here. What you'll want to do when putting these together is pretty much match all the colors. Aftermarket radios all have the same color code system. Factory radios don't. That's because for a while, car companies were trying to make it so that you could only install their products, their radios, stuff like that. It's always cheaper to go with something aftermarket than it is to go with, say, back to Chrysler and buy a Chrysler radio. So first thing you'll want to do is strip a little bit of wire off or shielding off your wiring, and that is perfectly fine. That's good enough for a solder and or butt connector connection. So this one's kind of used, a little bit half used. I'm going to go ahead and show you. So once you strip your wire, you'll get your little tool here and you'll thread the wire into the butt connector. Give it a squeeze, and that is pretty much how that works. So you're going to repeat that a whole bunch of times, and you'll end up with a wiring harness that looks like this. And it's going to have all your connections, everything's color coded, one by one by one. Let's say you get into the Jeep and this has already been cut out. You need to find out which wire is which. None of these colors are going to match any of these colors, so you're going to have a mess on your hands. The first thing you need to do is get a multimeter. Spend a little bit of money on one, and you're going to be looking for this function right here. Basically what this function does is so what this is going to do is it's going to let you know if a wire has complete connection from one part of the vehicle to another. Say, I want to find out which wire is my ground. So I don't have any metal back in here to go off of. You can always go off the ignition. Yeah? And you can always go off of your antenna. Give me a second here. Those are 2 points that you can always use to find your ground. Once you've got your ground, you just pop this bad boy in here so you know it's the ground. And you go to your DC function, which is going to look like that. This one's AC. That's for the kind of power that you'd find in your house. But this one's going to be DC, which is a direct current. You can also find AC in your car, but we don't really need to go into that. So then all you'll do is just pin each one of these until you find constant power. When you find constant power, then you take the key, put it in the ignition, put it in the ignition, and then you're going to search each one for power. Once you find one with power, after you've already found your constant, you're looking for your accessory, take the key out of the ignition, power should go away on that. Then you need to find, you'll connect those wires as you find them, then you need to find your speaker wires. one of the oldest tricks I know is basically shut everything off, pull all this out. Like, you can have your powers connected, but don't connect anything else. Then you'll start stripping the speaker leads that are left over, or any of the leads that are left over. You're going to want to test each one of the leads for power, and then when you're sure that the leads don't have power, take them 2x2 and get a 9-volt battery and pop it against the leads. When you pop it against the leads, you'll hear an audible pop. You should be able to tell whether it's your front right, front left, or rear left. Now that's how you're going to install a radio if the wiring harness is cut. If not, get your butt connectors. Repeat that first step I showed you where we installed the butt connector in, and just build this. So when you get this built, and one of the things I didn't tell you but I do need to tell you is that when I get 2 sets of wiring harnesses and I need to connect them together, I will cut this, I'll straighten it out as flat as I can, and then I'll cut them all in a straight line. Don't hook them up and cut them, make sure that it's disconnected, but cut them all in a straight line, and then that way when you go to put it together, it'll look nice and pretty like this, instead of having one way up here and one down here, and you got a big old wire kicking out like that. It'll look nice and pretty, and that's what we're going for. So, oh, and another thing too, don't ever tape wires, okay? If I go to install a radio and I got wires taped on, and say the tape comes off and 2 of the speaker leads touch, it'll fry your radio if it's hooked up. When it's hooked up, when you're putting it in the dashboard, and pretty much you can throw the radio away. So make sure that you don't tape and twist. Either use soldering or butt connectors. Soldering will last longer, as I've said before, but for the lifespan of a radio, butt connectors will be perfect. All right, so we're going to take our tape, and you can use the regular normal size electrical tape. I just have this, and you know, we use what we have. Let's see. And you're not going to be able to get it watertight, but you're just going to be able to put a nice little bit of a thick layer of electrical tape on. There we go. All right, so we got a wiring harness built. We plugged it up. Everything's good to go. Goes apart, goes back together. Make sure your ground wire's in. Okay. And I always like to hook the radio up before I actually install it. That way I can make sure everything's working correctly. All right. Let's see here. Take the key. You don't have to start the motor. Just put it into the accessory position. And you're going to have to turn it on the first time. All right. There we go. Let's see. Oh, we got some good jams there. Let me see if I can get a radio station. So, we've got audio. Everything works the way we want it to. So let's install it back into the dash. Mess off. Put your screws back in. And like I said before, some cars are a lot more complicated. This Jeep is pretty simple. And a lot of the times you'll have to disassemble the center console just to get the radio in. Let's see here. Now, when putting stuff like this back in, I always try to be real easy with it. That way I don't break any of the clips. Because if you bend any of these or damage them, it's a pain. And sometimes these will get loose here on these tabs. You can get a pair of pliers and bend these back, or bend this out a little bit, but you want to keep it straight. And when you put it in, try not to get it cockeyed or twisted or in there any goofy way, because you'll end up breaking something. And then we haven't already, which we should have. Make sure everything works. Make sure everything works the way we want to. If you're having issues and everything's not working right and it's not powering up correctly, just let me know in the comments below. This is pretty much the straightforward way to do a radio install. There's a lot of other complicated issues, and there's a lot of things that can change how you might need to do this. Not in this car. Thankfully, Jeeps are built simplistic in a way that makes everything work real nice. But in other brands of cars, it gets pretty complicated pretty fast. So again, guys, I just want to thank you for watching the video today. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Please put any comments down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks, and have a nice day.